In the land of Israel, in the time of great oppression, the Philistines ruled over God's people for 40 years. The Israelites cried out for a deliverer, and God answered in the most unexpected way. A woman, barren for years, was visited by an angel of the Lord. His words changed her fate forever. You will conceive and give birth to a son. No razor shall touch his head, for he will be a Nazirite, set apart for God from birth. He will begin to deliver Israel from the hands of the Philistines. Judges 13:5. When her husband Manoah heard of this divine prophecy, he prayed for guidance. The angel appeared again, confirming that their child was destined for greatness, but only if he remained faithful to God's command. And so Samson was born, a child of promise, destined to become the strongest man the world had ever seen. From a young age, Samson displayed strength beyond ordinary men. He grew up knowing he was different, that the power surging within him was not his own, but a gift tied to his obedience to God. His first true test came in the wilderness when, without warning, a young lion lunged at him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands as he might have torn a young goat. Judges 14:6. He left its carcass behind and walked away, unaware that this moment was a warning, one he would fail to heed. Sometime later, Samson passed by the same path and found something strange. The lion's remains had become the home of a swarm of bees, and within its ribs, honey glistened in the sunlight. A twisted irony. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. Judges 14:14. He scooped the honey into his hands, savoring the taste, but he had unknowingly stepped onto a dangerous path. He had violated his Nazirite vow by touching the dead, Numbers 6:6. But Samson was beginning to believe in his own strength rather than the one who gave it. His weakness for temptation soon revealed itself when he saw a Philistine woman in Timnah. She was beautiful, forbidden, and he wanted her. Against his parents' warnings, he insisted on making her his wife. "Get her for me, for she is right in my eyes." Judges 14:3. The marriage feast was extravagant, filled with Philistine men who did not know that among them sat the very man destined to destroy them. Wanting to showcase his wit, Samson posed a riddle to them, one drawn from his own secret. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. If they solved it, he would give them fine garments. If they failed, they would owe him the same. But the Philistines did not play fair. They threatened Samson's new bride, demanding the answer. Fearing for her life, she pleaded with Samson, weeping day and night until he could no longer bear it. She cried the whole 7 days of the feast. So on the 7th day, he finally told her, Judges 14:17. That night, when the Philistines laughed and revealed the answer, Samson knew he had been betrayed. His rage was uncontainable. He left the wedding, stormed into another Philistine city, and struck down 30 men, taking their garments to settle his bet. Judges 14:19. But his rage cost him dearly. When he returned, he discovered that his wife had been given to another man. Betrayal turned to vengeance. Samson captured 300 foxes, tying their tails together with burning torches and releasing them into the Philistine fields. He burned up the shocks and standing grain, together with the vineyards and olive groves. Judges 15:4-5. In retaliation, the Philistines burned his wife and her father alive. Enraged beyond control, Samson slaughtered them in return. He attacked them viciously and slaughtered many of them. Judges 15:8. It was no longer a battle, it was a war. The Philistines pursued him, determined to end his reign of destruction. The men of Judah, fearing their wrath, bound Samson with ropes and handed him over. But as the Philistines closed in, laughing at their victory, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. The ropes on his arms became like charred flax, and the bindings dropped from his hands. Judges 15:14. He seized the jawbone of a donkey lying nearby and struck down 1,000 men. Judges 15:15. The battlefield was littered with the corpses of those who had thought to subdue him. Years passed, and Samson ruled as judge over Israel, but his heart remained restless. His lust led him into the arms of a woman in Gaza. The Philistines saw their opportunity and surrounded the city, waiting for dawn to trap him. But when Samson awoke in the middle of the night, sensing danger, he did not flee. He got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate, together with the 2 posts, and tore them loose. Judges 16:3. He hoisted them onto his shoulders and carried them up a mountain, leaving his enemies in awe and fear. Yet, despite his strength, his greatest enemy was not the Philistines. It was his own heart. He fell in love once more, this time with Delilah, a woman whose beauty masked deadly deceit. The Philistine lords came to her with an offer, 1,100 pieces of silver each if she uncovered the secret of Samson's strength. Judges 16:5. And so the deadly game began. Each night she begged him to reveal his weakness. "Tell me the secret of your great strength." Judges 16:6. First, he lied. "Tie me with fresh bowstrings," then new ropes, then weaving his hair into a loom. Each time he broke free. But Delilah was relentless. Her soft words were sharper than any blade. "How can you say you love me," she whispered, "if you won't share your heart with me?" Judges 16:15. Samson, exhausted, gave in. He revealed the truth. His hair was the source of his strength, the mark of his vow to God. That night, as he slept in her lap, Delilah called for a man to shave his head. When he awoke to the sound of Philistines rushing in, he tried to fight, but he was powerless. He did not know that the Lord had left him. Judges 16:20. They seized him, gouged out his eyes, and dragged him away in chains. Time passed, and the Philistines gathered in their temple to Dagon, their false god. Thousands of lords and nobles laughed as they called for Samson to entertain them. But they did not notice. His hair had begun to grow again. Judges 16:22. A boy led him to the pillars that held the temple, and for the first time in years, Samson lifted his face to heaven. "Sovereign Lord, remember me, strengthen me just once more." Judges 16:28. His fingers dug into the stone, and with one final mighty push, the temple shook, cracked, and collapsed, crushing thousands beneath its ruins. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. Judges 16:30. His body was recovered by his family, and he was buried in his father's tomb. His name would be remembered forever, not just for his strength, but for his tragic downfall. A man destined for greatness, who let his desires pull him from God's purpose. A warrior who only found true victory in his final breath. If you love Jesus and like this video, comment Amen.